The Democratic effort to stop a Texas voting rights bill from passing escalated this week, with Democrats literally fleeing the state and being told by the governor that if they return to Texas, they are likely to be rounded up, arrested, and forced to help pass the bill. So things are getting exciting, basically. And joining us now to discuss is the president of Solidarity Strategies, as well as the author of T.O. Bernie. Welcome back to the show, Chuck Rocha.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Chuck, as always, glad to have you here. Texas is an exciting state right now. The Democrats have fled. The bill that the Republicans are trying to pass seems fairly awful. What do you make of some of the provisions in that bill?
Look, it doesn't take a Rhodes Scholar to figure out how bad and what's going on in Texas. The governor wants to be president so bad and wants to be a mini Trump so bad that he is going to make sure that folks, it's harder to vote, make sure that women do not have access to health care. He doesn't believe in climate change. He wants to take Donald Trump and say, you think you know crazy, let me show you Texas crazy, hold my beer. And what the Democrats have said is like, here go, we'll hold the beer, but we're gonna go to DC to drink it. And so what you're seeing is a governor who called a special session for nothing other than his ego and to run for president, while in fact there are real troubles in Texas. And he could have had a special session to do something like keep the power on in an ice storm, or maybe fix the power grid that also he's asking folks to turn their air conditioner off in the summertime because the grid can't handle the power. This is absurd what's happening in Texas.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you reminded us, by the way, because I know that there was this awful heat wave that was leading to them having to limit their power use. Temperature-wise, how's it going in Texas right now?
Well, let me assure you, as a Mexican from East Texas who's kind of an old fat boy, it gets hot there quick, and we need our air conditioning. So you want to know something that cuts across all lines of Democrats, Republicans, and independents is when you are wet, when you're walking around your house because you're sweating. That's why. So that's what the problem is right now in Texas, is that we have a power grid that's not regulated. You got a bunch of good old boy politics going on, and the governor and the state house don't want to fix it. So they're having a legislative special session about things that make no sense.
Yeah, and he says, by the way, that if this one runs out, which seems to be the goal, that he will call others. I know that you've done a ton of work to try to get people out to vote, get them motivated to work in Texas and other states in the region. In Texas, if this bill passes, if they stop the 24-hour polling places, if they stop the ballot drop boxes, if they allow the poll watchers to get involved in people's business, how much more difficult would that make the job of activists like you?
It does make it a little bit harder for folks who are trying to work 2 or 3 jobs. Folks that don't have an ID, who take public transportation to work every day, and that's what they're trying to do. Let me remind you and all your viewers that just a few years ago, Republicans had a super majority in the House, and the Democrats couldn't even have walked out to stop this legislation. What you've seen is Democrats start picking up more seats because the state's becoming more progressive, more diverse. Less than 30% of all those public school children are white, and you have a legislature predominantly made up of a bunch of white men and white women who are like, all these brown and black kids are getting of age to vote. We got to do something to make it a little bit harder for them if we want to hang on to power. And that's the absurdity of what you're seeing right now.
So we have the Texas Democrats that are like willing to literally flee at pain of being arrested to stop this bill. In DC, you have the For the People Act, which has stopped for right now. Supposedly, at some point, they will begin working on it again. Do you think that the Texas Democrats, what they're up to right now, might inspire some Democrats nationally to really fight on this? Because were they to pass the For the People Act, that would help to deal with a lot of what Texas and other states are trying to do to stop people from voting.
There's over 40 states that have some type of legislation going on just like this right now. And I think what the Texas legislature is doing is trying to save all of us from ourselves and these state legislators, because what this does is it keeps the issue on the forefront of the media coverage like we're talking about right now, where we're reminding people at a time when I'm doing focus group with working class voters that are saying, you know what, gas is going up, bread's going up, my wages aren't going up. Tell me what politicians are doing right now to make my life better. And all I can say to them is, they're trying to make sure you don't have as many days to early vote. And they're like, what? What is that going to do to make my life better or make me be able to buy bread quicker or easier? That's where I think Democrats can take advantage of this and show people who really stands for working class values and are trying to get things done by keeping this issue front and center, because it shows the absurdity of what these folks are trying to accomplish.
And finally, I want to return to something you brought up. I hadn't intended to ask about this, but you got me thinking now about Greg Abbott. Like, as you pointed out, this seems like a pretty bad strategy. Like, his state has serious problems and he's not addressing them. That's going to anger even some Republicans. You talk about his clear future political ambitions. Do you think that he has what it takes to really stand out in the Republican field? Like, I know he wants to be a version of Trump. Does he have what it takes to appeal to conservatives in that way?
His whole focus right now is centered on DeSantis in Florida. He is trying to out crazy the crazy man in Florida. And it's just about not American voters, but this small little subset of Republican primary voters. Everybody needs to wonder that's why he's doing what he's doing, because it seems nonsensical that you would do this. But it does make sense when you're talking to that one little 20% of the Republican Party who right now doesn't even really believe Joe Biden was legally elected. Like, he's trying to get to and be popular with the craziest of the crazies. That's why he's doing exactly what he's doing. And if you're not planning on running for re-election and planning on having a long career other than running for president, this is the red meat you throw these crazy folks.
Okay, well, we'll certainly be watching, and we'll also be watching to see what happens with those Texas Democrats. Perhaps we'll be talking about this in the near future, but for now, Chuck Rocha, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.